weeks, a U.S. District Court in Seattle has handed down several rulings against lifting an injunction against the administration's barring of certain refugees from entering the U.S. It's complicated. This case involved a lawsuit filed by the ACLU in Seattle on behalf of organizations working to help refugees and their families. So here with the latest, please welcome from the ACLU's legal team, attorney Lisa Knowlin. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
So, I mean, that's a mouthful. Basically, give us the landscape of where we are right now.
Okay, so this piece of the lawsuit, we were challenging an order that came down from the Trump administration in October. And specifically, there were two pieces. The first one banned what's called follow to join refugees. So refugees that are already in the United States have a right to bring their spouses and children over to join them. And so that banned them from being reunited. And then the second piece was that it banned refugees from 11 countries from coming at all. So we challenged both of those pieces. We won in court in the end of December. And then so the court enjoined those pieces of the ban, saying that they couldn't be enforced until a further decision was brought down on it. And then the government asked the court to reconsider it. And we recently found out that the court said no.
So that means that's the end of that, or
so
does
it's
it keep going
up, It's going up on appeal to the Ninth Circuit now.
Okay, and then from there it could go to the Supreme Court.
Correct.
All right. So why are these rulings being handled here in Seattle? What is our local connection?
So we have plaintiffs that are here in the Seattle area. So we have one plaintiff, he's a Somali citizen, he's a refugee, he's been here for 4 years. He's been separated from his family, his wife and 3 children, for 4 years. They were on the brink of traveling right when these bans came down. Right. And so we're helping him. We're also working with the Episcopal Diocese, and they help resettle refugees here in Washington State. And
a reminder for everybody, a refugee is somebody who's been forced out of their home, either internally displaced in their country or someplace else in another country, either in an urban setting or a refugee camp, and only about 1% of refugees are ever resettled.
That's correct.
It's an amazing thing when somebody gets through all of the hoops and the checking and vetting to get to the United States. And in this case, the family was just that close to being reunited, but then they weren't able to be put together. What is this like for refugee families and just families in general who are living here, who are now separated and unclear about what's next?
It's such a hardship on them. I mean, I can't imagine not seeing my family for 4 years and not knowing when I would see them again. Our plaintiff hasn't seen his youngest child since the child was 6 months old, and the child is over 4 now. You know, and it's just a constant state of limbo. They don't know when they'll get to see each other again. His child asks, you know, Daddy, why don't I get to see you? Why don't I get to be with you? But there is hope. We're hoping that the plaintiff's family might actually arrive next week as a result of these rulings. So, you know, unless anything changes, we're cautiously optimistic and have our fingers crossed that they'll get to see each other.
Well, I hope you'll let us know. That would be amazing, because one of the things that happens to people, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is all of this checking and then a quarantine and a medical check at the end, so that if you miss your opportunity to leave, sometimes you have to go back to the end of the queue.
Correct. And so that's actually what happened with his family as well, is they had all of their clearances, their medical clearance, and then with the delay, it expired. It expires after 6 months, so they had to go through the process again. And then for refugees, there's actually a cap on the number that we let in every year, and it's the lowest it's ever been since the refugee program started. So these delays mean that you might not get in this year at all if the cap is reached.
Right. I recently met some people who had arrived from various parts of Africa, and some of them had been in refugee camps for more than 20 years, had raised their children there.
Correct.
And finally had a chance to come to this country. And it's really eye-opening when you start to talk about this less in terms of numbers and more in terms of human beings. Right. What have you learned from this work?
It is incredibly humbling, and it makes me feel so lucky to live the life that I live. Like you said, our plaintiff grew up in a refugee camp. You know, was a child there, became an adult there, married there, had children there, and it's harrowing.
It is. Washington State, our governor and our attorney general have been pretty active in trying to make sure that this is a population that is welcomed and has a chance to find their feet here. What kind of influence has that had on encouraging the ACLU and other organizations that support refugees?
It feels like a team effort. It's nice to be all working together to solve this issue. And so Washington State also brought a lawsuit challenging another aspect of the travel ban. And you know, we've been in communication with them about the case that we've brought. So
Is there anything you would want to say to people who don't work with refugees or maybe aren't familiar with this population about any of the perhaps misconceptions about who people are and how they fit into our community?
I would say that these are people. These are people who've been through experiences that you and I can't imagine and have struggled so much. Literally can't imagine. And they've worked so hard to get here and have gone through the most rigorous of screening processes to arrive. And so I think, we need to welcome them and to help create safe lives for people.
I feel like we're in this maybe golden era for both journalists and lawyers right now, changing history at this point. So you've hit this at the perfect time. What's next in this case?
So the appeal to the Ninth Circuit is next on this case. And so hopefully they'll uphold the injunction. And, it's likely that it'll go to the Supreme Court as well. There are other cases challenging different aspects of the travel ban that are also in the works. So it's kind of a shifting landscape day by day.
Do you feel optimistic?
I do feel optimistic. I was, encouraged by this ruling, and it's nice to see it having tangible effects that, our plaintiff's family might be hopefully arriving next week.
Yeah. Would you let us know if that
Yes,
happens?
absolutely.
We'd really like to know. Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
work and for coming to explain a bit about where we are with this. We appreciate it. Please visit our website to find the latest information on this issue and more on upcoming ACLU workshops. There's some interesting stuff. We'll be back in just a moment.
Yeah.